Hello, welcome to Billingshurst Family Church Kids Work. Today we're going to be looking at a story, we're going to have some worship, we'll have a quiz and we'll have a memory verse.
And he's known me and he's loved me since before the world began. How wonderful to be a part of God's amazing plan. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God, and he holds us in his hand. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God, and he holds us in his hand. He's higher than a skyscraper, and he's deeper than a submarine. He's wider than the universe, and beyond my wildest dreams. And he's known me, and he's loved me since before the world began. How wonderful to be a part of God's amazing plan. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God, and he holds us in his hand. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God, and he holds us in his hand. And he holds us in his hand. And he holds us in his hand.
Hi, I'm Rahab. I want to tell you about a man, a city and an army and what God did for them. You know when something big happens? Like when you hear a really loud noise? Or when the wind blows something over? You know that something has caused it. You can usually work out what it is, and it's usually quite normal. But a few years ago, we, in our city, started hearing about things happening. Unusual things, like the Red Sea drying up so people could cross it, and cities being destroyed. The thing was, all these incredible things were happening for one group of people, the Israelites. And it was fine for them because they were always safe. But what about the people around them? Well, they were coming off quite badly. So word was spreading that the God of the Israelites was powerful, and that scared us. Now, I wasn't about to get in the way of that God, all those people. So when the chance came to help them out and gain some favour with them, I took it. At that time, I used to live in Jericho, a city with walls all around it. And my house was built into the wall, which meant that I could see outside the wall. So my house was one of the first that people came to if they were visiting. One day, 2 Israelite spies came. They were looking at Jericho to see if it would be a nice place to live. That sounds peaceful enough, doesn't it? You might go and look at a house if you were thinking of moving into it. But this wasn't quite the same as that. The city wasn't for sale. People didn't want to move out of it. The Israelites were going to invade the city and drive out the people that lived there. This was a scary idea. I knew that I would rather be on the side of the Israelite God than standing against him. So I invited the spies in. After we had spoken for a bit, I hid them on the roof. We had flat roofs back then, and I had loads of flax up there so they hid underneath it. So when some important people came from our government to find the spies, I told them they had gone, and to go after them. Then I made a deal with the spies. They said they would look after me and my family as long as I didn't tell anyone what they were doing. Oh, and I would have to tie a red cord in the window and bring my whole family into the house for them to be saved. After making the agreement, I let them down on the outside of the wall and told them to go to the hills and hide for 3 days so they wouldn't be found. After that I heard nothing for a while. But I heard the Israelite army, while they were coming towards us, miraculously crossed the Jordan River. That's 2 rivers they had crossed. How powerful must their God be? So while I was sitting in my house, waiting for something to happen, a man named Joshua, the leader of the Israelites, saw a man with a drawn sword in his hand. Joshua went up to him and asked, "Are you for us or against us?" "Neither," the man replied, "but as commander of the army of the Lord, I have now come." Then Joshua fell face down to the ground out of respect. I mean, you would, wouldn't you, if you knew that someone had come from God? "What message does my Lord have for his servant?" Joshua said. Basically, this meant, what does God want to say to me? The man with the sword said, "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy." So Joshua did. It might seem strange, but this is not the first time that happened to someone. It happened to a man named Moses as well. You might have heard of him. After the spies had left, the people of our city were worried. Very worried. They were scared of the Israelites, as their God seemed to have power. So they had locked and barred the gates of Jericho. No one could get in or out. The people of Jericho hoped that would be enough. We had no idea what was about to happen. Joshua was given some important instructions, and I watched from my window in the city walls where I had tied the red cord, waiting. What actually happened was a bit crazy. Apparently, God had promised that if the Israelites followed the instructions, then the walls of the city would fall down. You might think they had to go and get some explosives, or an axe, maybe, or even a wrecking ball, but no, none of these things needed to happen. In fact, they didn't even have to touch the wall, not even a little poke. This is what they had to do instead. They had to march around the city, once a day, with all the army, for 6 days. Every time they marched, 7 of the priests had to carry trumpets made of ram's horns and walk in front of the ark. By the way, the ark was where God was. It was like a holy box that had been made very carefully so God could be in it, so he could travel with them. That's how it worked in those days. The people carrying the ark had to treat it with a lot of respect. After 6 days of this, on the next day they had to march around the city 7 times. All the time, the priests were blowing their trumpets. We could hear them. Everyone in the city was wondering what they were doing. It was a strange way to attack a city. There was a long blast of the trumpets, and then the whole army shouted loudly. Suddenly, the walls of the city came crashing down all around. We were not expecting that. It was terrifying, but I was on their side. I had seen the power of their God, and I hoped that I would be okay along with my family. Once the walls were down, the army charged in and took over the whole place. They won it for God. They burnt all the houses and took everything from the people. That was, all the people apart from me and my family, because we had helped them and we were on their side. We were kept safe. And then from then on we lived with the Israelites. Here's a quick quiz. Where did Rahab live? Rahab lived in the city called Jericho. What was the name of the leader of the Israelites? His name was Joshua. What did Rahab put into her window? It was a red cord so she and her family would be protected. How many trumpets were taken with the Israelites? 7 trumpets. How did the walls come down? Was it by explosives, axes, or marching? It was by marching around the walls. How did Rahab help the spies out? She invited them in, then hid them when people came to find them. Well done! Wasn't God amazing in that story? So powerful that he made the walls of Jericho fall down without anyone even touching them. God was on the Israelite side. He was looking after them. They needed somewhere to live, and he had promised them a land. God was on their side, and they were following him. They were his people. On God's side is the best place to be, and Rahab knew that. That's why she helped the spies out. It wasn't easy though. Imagine walking 7 times around a city. Bigger than Billingshurst. Your feet would hurt. You'd be wondering why you were doing it. Sometimes it would probably feel like nothing was happening. Those walls were still standing until the 7th day. And then finally those walls came crumbling down. We need to remember that God is powerful, bigger than anything that we're struggling with. We need to remember that he is looking after us. He is on our side. Remember, those walls didn't crumble till the last day. It might seem like God is not there, or he's not looking after you, but he is, and he'll come through, and you'll see it. Never give up on him. Lord, I thank you that you are powerful, more powerful than those walls that the Israelites had to walk around, more powerful than any enemies they had. Help us to remember that. Help us to remember that you are bigger than our problems, and help us to ask you for help and to have faith that you will help us. Amen.
Guys, I have a mission, should you choose to accept it. I need your help to learn this memory verse. Let's go!
God always helps us in times of trouble. Psalm 46 verse 1.
We did it. Yes. Thanks, everyone. Bye.